And welcome to the Kiosk Presents. I'm Steve, and with me today is Daniel Post Senning, an etiquette expert and author of Manners in a Digital World, Living Well Online, talking all about how to not offend people, how to not be a jerk online, and just how to best use your netiquette skills to live in a more polite world. Thank you for joining us, Daniel.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Now, you have a history in your family of being etiquette experts and being trained from a very young age to know proper etiquette, stemming back from Emily Post. Is that interesting growing up, do you get trained which fork to use, or?
Yes. Emily was my great-great-grandmother, so we're a 5-generation family business. It's funny, though, the tradition kind of sneaks up on you in some ways. I was so fortunate. The members of my family that really represent this tradition were such gracious and kind individuals. I never felt like manners or etiquette were something difficult or hard. They were just part of the fabric of life. And I really, in some ways, took for granted till I got older just how smooth all of those family relations went. And I think a lot of it had to do with the underpinning good etiquette that was being observed by members of the family.
Now, I've heard it said, and I believe it was actually Emily Post quote, that manners are not, they aren't for you, they're for everyone around you.
Well, the current version of this that we like to say is it's easier to see rudeness in other people than it is to see it in ourselves. And oftentimes the place to start when you're thinking about the bad manners that you're seeing in someone else is whether that lens could be pointed back at yourself, because oftentimes that's the place to start. And we all have habits that need reassessment and need attention, particularly in this challenging new technological world that we're all living in.
Yeah, it's definitely much harder online when you don't have a lot of the social cues you do when you're meeting someone in person. Do you have any tips for how to be slightly more polite online for the average person?
Absolutely. It's really important to think about the person on the other end. Hold yourself accountable. Even though there's that electronic brick wall, as you mentioned, you're not getting the facial expressions. You can picture yourself at the family dinner table or walking down the main street of your hometown. That's a great way to hold yourself accountable. Would I say this in those environments? Would I do this in those environments? Because oftentimes when we're online, it's the most public and permanent place we're going to be working.
Yep, because everyone can read and it has a memory. 5 years from now, someone can still look up what you posted back then.
And that digital profile that accrues around all of us is part of our professional image and part of our personal image.
I've noticed that even friends online can become much more callous when they're talking digitally.
Again, it's without the filter or even the accountability of a reproachful glance or even a slight frown or scowl. The ability to interact face-to-face, to interpret other people's emotion is a muscle like anything else, and it atrophies. We lose our capacity if we don't practice it. So it's really important to carve out the time in our lives when we're going to cultivate that face-to-face skill. I like to say that the dinner table is a place that most people can agree is a good place to work on that. But it goes beyond just taking a cell phone call at the table. Sometimes parents want to give the 5-year-old an iPad that works like the coloring book used to. Sometimes it's parents who are wanting to maybe use their new Bank of America mobile app, sending money to anybody anytime with just an email or a phone number to settle a bill after a meal. It can seem like the polite thing to do to settle up or to keep your child from distracting others. At the same time, taking that device out at the table takes away from the time that we spend practicing the face-to-face interactions. Those are all good things. They're all good ways to use our devices, but we got to identify the appropriate places. And the dinner tables may be a good place to carve out the time to put them away.
I know me and my wife have specifically, we saw a mother and a daughter both playing on their phones rather than talking to each other right as that daughter was going off to college. And we were just so shocked that we started a rule where neither of us is allowed to have our cell phone out at the dinner table.
I love it. And you're taking the responsibility as a parent to be the parent that you want your children to be, to model the behavior that you think is important. And I'll tell you, you mentioned your spouse, and I want to mention to everybody out there that oftentimes talking very clearly with your spouse about what are good expectations around these devices, many people are using them as alarm clocks, which means they're bringing them into the bedroom. Are you then going to take a work call that comes in late at night? A lot of couples are agreeing now that they're going to take work that happens on those mobile devices, on those smartphones, to a public space in the house or even to a home office. And that way you really start to define what are the workspaces in the home and family environment and keep them separate from the family spaces.
That's actually really useful. Just so you don't have any conflicts, someone's trying to do something personal, like watch a show or read a book and quiet, and then suddenly a work call comes in and you're interrupting everything they're trying to do peacefully.
You got it. And people know to talk to the people at their office to set reasonable expectations about when it's okay to call and how long to allow for a message to come back when someone's on vacation time. But it's also important to do that for yourself in your family environment. So again, you start to cultivate the good habits that are going to replace those bad habits that we don't want to engage in.
What are some topics you talk about in your book as far as dealing with kids in the internet and etiquette online?
Having very clear expectations of children is a great place to start. You want to empower them to be good at what they're doing. It starts, believe it or not, before they're even capable of holding the device in their hand. When you're first holding that child in your arms, that's a great time to start practicing not taking a call, not having a TV on at the same time. But as they get older, you want to start to be more intentional and conscious about how you talk to kids, about the costs, the responsibilities, and very clearly what's okay and when. So when they're first getting online, you want to keep that happening in public spaces where parents can monitor and keep an eye on things. As they get a little older, as they become teens, you want to talk to them about accountability in terms of not clearing browser history and allowing their parents to connect with them on social networks as well.
Well, it's been great talking to you. We've learned a lot about manners in the digital world. If people want to know more, they can pick up your book and learn how to live well online. You're Daniel Senning. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Kiosk Presents. We're so glad to have you.
You're most welcome. Take care.